When it comes to dying for your country, it's better not to die at all.
When people bring up films that are supposed to be anti-war, or any form of story that speaks out against war itself, most people turn to Erich Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front. The writing of this novel is almost sad and depressing, yet somehow or another it's also a very, very, I think the best word for the book is direct. As in, it's pretty well to the point. Not a whole lot of beating around the bush in the story. It lets you know from the start what this particular story is about. Now, many people, especially those who are on this platform and people who write articles about this story, they love to say that this particular film is about the dangers of nationalism and what it can actually cause. However, they miss something very important. The nationalistic elements themselves, especially in the film or the adaptations, doesn't seem to happen until after the war has been declared. And that is because it didn't happen until after the war was declared. One of the scenes that people love to use from the film or the adaptations is from the 1979 version.
Fighting. Does the Kaiser? Maybe if he'd stayed out of it in the first place, there'd be no war.
It started.
Their country insulted ours? I don't understand. A mountain in France insulted a mountain in Germany?
You know what I mean. One country offended the other.
Oh? Then what am I doing here? I haven't been offended. How could I be offended? I've never even been to France before this. In all my life, I've only known a handful of Frenchies. They seem all right to me. Human, people.
And there are other scenes throughout the films that sort of address the point. But if there's something I found out about this story, is that the more and more you read it, the more and more that you actually watch each adaptation, minus the 2022 adaptation, which will come up over the course of this video, is that it's a story that constantly reaffirms itself. And it does it in multiple ways. But before we fully dive in, let's go ahead and get an idea of what Remarque was really looking for. I pulled this right here from The Great War. I'll link the full video in the description box, but here you go.
Everyday business. That was intentional and outright. In the preface, Remarque states that the book does not accuse or confess anything in any way. He considered himself apolitical. Public perception, however, considered him anything but that. The book was not received as a neutral report of what happened in the war. It was seen as an accusation against war and the military.
And at the very beginning of the film, you get the tagline, and you get basically, this right here is not a confession. This right here is not exactly an adventure. It's not exactly pointed at anybody. It's essentially a story that blames the people who sent them off to war without taking any form of responsibility. Remarque would write in his book, The Road Back, he would basically put in that book that all these guys that had served, for the most part, they weren't exactly looking at great prospects when they got back home, and that at the very, very beginning, as it said, even though these men may have survived the war, they would never fully be able to get away from the war. As in, the effects of the war will always be with you. It's always going to be something that you deal with. Now, before we fully dive into this video, I want you to know right now that this video right here from Jake Bishop will be in the description box. I had to borrow a couple of things from this video. You guys will see over the course of this video here, and don't worry, there'll be the thumbnail be placed inside the actual clip itself, so that way you guys can know where to go. Like I said, the video will be linked in the description box. And these two videos right here from Henry Stewart History on the outbreak of World War I. One of these he recently just released. He's pretty good on the topic. I'm going to link those videos in the description box as well. This is not going to be a video that is going to be talking about World War I in the historical sense, but just some of the experiences that these men had. And here is how this video is going to be broken down. The first part is going to be about the character of Paul Baumer and what he has seen. Paul, of course, is the main character of the novel. He is basically the amalgamation of everything that Remarque went through during his time in World War I. The second thing we're going to be talking about is Paul's experience at home and that generation that sent him off to war. There's going to be a little bridge where I'm going to be talking a little bit about the 2022 remake or the 2022 version. I wouldn't exactly call it a remake, even though some people do, but we're going to be talking about that a little bit. And that right there itself may actually warrant a bigger video down the road, just giving you a bit of a bit of a wink to you that there may be a video coming out on that particular film. And of course, I'm going to be discussing the end of the film towards the end of this video. Now, with that right there out of the way, if you guys like this type of content, please hit the thumbs up button. Please consider subscribing. This right here is the direction of the channel, the direction that we're going from now on. Also, if you guys can, please leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say, and let's begin.
I can be smashed to bits in a bomb-proof dugout, or I can survive 10 hours unscathed out in the open.
It's not just that. It's also the rats, it's also the scrounging for food, it's also the constant shelling, it's also the fact that you get shell shock, which was a phenomenon that really took off in World War I. Of course, all wars, post-traumatic stress disorder is a side effect that comes along with it. I'm not going to go too far into PTSD for the purpose of this video here, but the point is this right here. This right here was not the adventure that they had been sold. Now, anytime you sign the contract, you should know what you're getting into. But still, though, at that point in time, many people expected World War I to be a short war. There's even a scene of Paul at home where his father tells him that it's probably going to be a short war. We will discuss that there in much more detail when we talk about Paul's experience at home. But, yeah, trench warfare is pure hell for these guys. It was not the adventure that these guys believed that it was. They'd been told that what they were doing was serving the fatherland. They were fighting for the fatherland and all the people around them, whether it be teachers, parents, friends, even Himmelstoss, who was actually working for the Postal Service. You find out in the actual book and the film. But still, though, the point is this right here. These right here were people that they grew up with, around. And we'll be bringing this right back up a little bit later on in the video, but the point is, this right here was not the adventure that Paul Baumer had been sold, nor his friends. One friend, Kemerick, who will be coming up a little bit later on in this video, especially when we get to the Paul coming home section, loses his leg and then eventually dies after losing his leg. After the amputation, he died of the infection. Like I said, we'll be bringing him back up here shortly because it's just the nature of war. It's soulless, it's heartless, it's quite frankly random. It doesn't care who the hell gets in the way. If your time is up, your time is up. There's another example that I want to talk about really quick before we go any further. And if you've seen the 1979 version, chances are you know about the scene where Cat breaks in some of the new recruits, where he basically tells them that, look, you know, it's probably not a good idea for you to use your bayonet. It actually does more harm than good. You should use your spade because it's heavy, it's like a club, you can wield it like a battle axe. But the thing about that scene there is that shortly after that, you got this sequence where one of the new guys dies as a result of a gas. Well, he doesn't really die, but you get the impression that he dies due to his own incompetence during a gas attack. They survive one attack, and right after that, he drops his gas mask back into the crater where the gas is still emanating at, and he jumps in to go get his gas mask. Just a rookie mistake. Now, in the book, this sequence has a lot more behind it. For example, Cat and Paul, they discuss whether they should just go ahead and put the kid out of his misery, but in the 1979 version, instead, you got this.
A baby. Just a baby.
Babies is correct. Just a baby. Now, this right here is what Paul has been dealing with. He's been dealing with rookie mistakes out of other young men. I mean, it's expected. He's been dealing with the shelling. He's been dealing with the rats, the lack of food, the horrible conditions. He's been seeing death. He's had to kill men. Of course, there was also the sequence where he got stuck in the crater with the Frenchman. And of course, you got that famous "We Could Be Brothers" scene. And of course, this right is what Paul has had to deal with. So imagine when he gets home how he's going to feel. Well, let us talk about Paul's time at home. When Paul gets home, the first thing he does is obviously go back to his house, the house that he was raised in. He sees his sister, and the minute she walks off to go let her mother know that he's home, he just lets it all go. Given everything that Paul Baumer has been through, or Paul Bäumer, however you might want to pronounce it, I'm pretty sure you guys will rip me in the comment section, but it's okay. Given everything that he's been through, it's a wonder that he is not fully just broken down already, or just fully lost it before. Something else, too, that I found very interesting when re-reviewing the 1979 version that I'll bring up at the very end that I kind of alluded to earlier, but just we'll get to that here in a second about the time that Paul has actually spent at the front. He finds out that his mother is sick, dying. The cancer may have returned. His father wants to carry him around town to brag about him. Of course, this is common. You know, if you are the father or a mother of a service member, chances are you probably would want to show off your son or your daughter. Just the way that it is. But then we get to the beer garden scene. Now, I had to get these two clips from Jake Bishop, so I'm going to let them play back to back. It's going to be edited together, but here goes.
Naturally, it's worse here. Naturally. But the best for our soldiers all the time. That's our motto.
Silence.
When you get in it, war isn't the way it looks back here. Oh, you don't know anything about it. Of course, you know about the details. But this relates to the whole. And you can't judge that. Of course, you do your duty and you risk your life. But for that, you receive the highest honor.
Now, these right here were from the original 1930 version. In the 1979 version, it's a little bit different, and I'm playing right here in the B-roll footage, but like I said, I don't know if I told you guys earlier, but Shout Studios has this particular film for free on their YouTube channel, so I'll link it in the description box. And of course, there's going to be another video on that particular version that will come out on Gear Issue 33. But here's the thing. First and foremost, these people sound completely and totally out of touch. They have no idea what Paul has been through, and then to go on top of that, and you guys obviously heard what was said to him just now. It's almost as if to say that they want him to feel a certain way, or they expect him to feel a certain way, or they dictate how he is supposed to feel. Given everything that Paul has been through, I think that Paul has the right to feel however the hell he wants. Like I mentioned before, he's been shelled, he's been shot at, flamethrower, gas attacks, the rats, the trenches. He's been through the ringer. He's been through the worst kind of hell that you can go through. So when you hear somebody basically discount your experience and say that it's not really worth anything, and I pretty much know more than you do, and that, oh, you only get the best and we do not, even though they've been getting the best the entire time, that right there being the civilians, yeah, it's probably going to leave a bad taste in your mouth, and it's probably going to make you feel a certain way towards a certain civilian populace. Now, there is the discussion with Cantorac, which we'll get to here in a second, but I want to talk about Kemrick for a second because I kind of alluded to this earlier, and I want to go ahead and get this right out of the way. So Paul eventually meets Kemrick's mother. And Paul and Kemrick have actually been best friends since childhood. It's like it is his best friend. I would say it would be Kemrick and it would be Mueller. And Kemrick gets wounded and eventually he loses his leg. Now, the 1930 version, I think, has the most effective way of doing this scene and probably the more effective way of explaining how the war just takes lives. I'll also link this video right here from Wendigoon in the description box because he talks about the scene, the boot scene in the 1930 version where the boots just keep switching feet. Well, the reason why that scene exists is because it's designed to show you that the war goes through men like a knife through warm butter. It's just how much they go through them. Or as General Patton would say, like crap through a goose. But still the point is this right here. It's indiscriminate. Now, the 2022 version, they basically make their intentions known outright from the very start with the coffins, the stripping of the uniforms, and, of course, the uniforms being washed, restitched, and then reissued out to incoming troops. But more on 2022 a little bit later. The scene with Kemrick is important because Kemrick loses his leg, it's amputated, and then he dies as a result of the infection. Mueller wants Kemrick's boots because he knows that Kemrick is not going to be able to use them anymore. And the guys are kind of like, dude, you shouldn't feel bad about this. It's a one-way ticket. You're going home. You're going to spend the rest of your life at home. And of course, spending your life the rest of your life at home is actually a good thing. You're away from the front. You're away from all this crap that we're going through. And that's not exactly the case because Kemrick is obviously going home in a wooden box instead and being placed 6 feet under. Paul has to lie to Kemrick's mother about how Kemrick died. And what's even more impactful is that before they left for boot camp, Kemmerich's mother implored Paul to watch her son.
Mrs. Kemmerich.
Paul, please, you may be speaking to me. I want you to promise me something.
What, Mrs. Kemmerich?
Look after Franz. Take care of him.
Oh, of course.
You know how he looks up to you. He will do anything that you ask him to. You know that. Make him stay away from danger. You know how reckless he is.
I'll make sure he behaves himself.
So when you get to the sequence involving Cantorek, you can almost feel everything that's inside of Paul at this point in time as he explains to Cantorek, look, man, you told us that it was a great honor to fight for the Fatherland. You told us that it was going to be a great big giant adventure. You told us that you were jealous. By the way, Paul got told this by his father too, and I'll speak about this in a second. But the point is this right here. You can feel all the pent-up rage inside of Paul. Now, in the 1930 version, what I found to be so interesting, and I'll play a small snippet for you guys, and you guys will see exactly where we're going with this.
I think it's beautiful and sweet to die for your country, don't you? Well, we used to think you knew. But first bombardment taught us better. It's dirty and painful to die for your country. When it comes to dying for your country, it's better not to die at all. There are millions out there dying for their countries. And what good is it?
Paul!
You asked me to tell them how much they're needed out there. He tells you, go out and die. Oh, but if you'll pardon me, it's easier to say go out and die than it is to do it.
Coward!
You got men calling you a coward. They haven't even bothered to go to the front line. Remember, it was Cantorek who gave the speech that was designed to motivate the boys into joining. They were also led to believe that this right here would be a short war. In the 1979 version, which by the way is my personal favorite version, and I'll be having a separate video on that, if I didn't mention it already, on Gear Issue 33, my second channel, there's a dinner table discussion that leads you to believe that the war is in fact halfway over. The book seems to go in kind of a linear motion as far as like the direction of like Paul's time in conflict. Nothing really specific. However, let me say this right here. In the 1979 version, which will get its own video by itself on Gear Issue 33, probably the next week or so, at the very end, you find out that it's the class of 1916 that Paul is writing about, meaning that it was 1916 when they joined to actually go fight. It's also alluded to in a dinner table scene with Paul's father where he says that the Russians are finished, the French are teetering, and the British are starting to starve. In a lot of ways, this right here alone destroys the whole nationalism narrative that people love to use when discussing this particular story. You see, many people believe that World War I, and I alluded to this earlier, they believe that it started because of hyper-nationalism and national pride. However, the thing is this right here. The national pride elements did not come until after the war had been declared, and as you guys can obviously see, no direct dates have been given as far as the story itself is concerned, at least the timeline at the very, very minimal. In the 1979 version, 1916. In the 1930 version, it's at least 1915 when these guys go off to go fight. And of course, Erich Maria Remarque himself did not actually go fight in the war until after a year of training. He didn't actually see any meaningful action until 1915, 1916 timeframe. It was about the generation that sent these boys to war. That right there is what this film, that is what this story is in fact about. Which is something to me that I did not like about the 2022 version. Even though it was a good film and a pretty good, well, I wouldn't even call it really a remake. It was really more of like a dystopian version of it, or an alternate version. I felt the 2022 version missed in a lot of ways because it sort of depersonalized Paul's experience, and it focused a little bit more on the character of Matthias Erzberger. Even though Paul is definitely the main character, but it focused more on Matthias Erzberger's attempts to try to get the war to end via the armistice. And the character of General Friedrichs, which is supposed to be this representation of how warriors are, which it kind of struck me the wrong way because, quite frankly, I'd say about 99.9% of the men who've actually fought in conflict, they don't feel like going to war every chance that a war potentially pops up. As a matter of fact, we're some of the first ones to be against going to war. And I felt that the use of this character launching a charge at the very, very end of the film to show you exactly how cold this guy was, the only thing he cared about was winning a war that had, for the most part, already been decided. I felt that it took away from the experience that you get in the novel and the other two versions of the film. The two, I would say the original version and then the updated version. And this right here is further compounded at the very end of the film, which is also the very, very end of the book, that Paul dies. He dies actually trying to reach out for a bird, which is sort of a callback to the beginning of the film when he's in the classroom and he's actually drawing a bird, which is something that Paul does. That's part of the reason why I like the 1979 version so much, is because it's closer to the book. The thing is this right here. In the 2022 version, it felt like the experience was cheapened when Paul was killed literally seconds before the armistice went into effect, and he died at the behest of a cold warrior, General Friedrichs. I felt like that actually missed the point. It's almost like General Friedrichs was the stand-in for the generation that sent Paul to war, when that's obviously not the case, because General Friedrichs is also operating at the behest of the state, which I think that right there may have been the point that they were trying to get across in the 2022 version. However, this right here is not what Erich Maria Remarque wanted as far as getting across when it comes to the message of his film. The film is about those who sent these boys off to fight. Those who sent these boys off to fight without even thinking about what could potentially happen to them. It was about the fact that they themselves had never really and truly experienced war themselves. And I know I'm saying themselves a lot here, but that right there is what this particular story was about. And the effects of the war itself staining these men for the rest of their lives. I mean, go back to the very beginning.
Is to be neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all an adventure. For death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped its shells...
The generation. If there's a message that I think about when I think about this particular story, it's not so much about nations, nationalism, or war itself. It's really more along the lines of think before you go do a job that somebody else is sending you to go do, even though they themselves are not going to be doing the job or even be with you. But those right there are just my thoughts. If you guys like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, share. Please give me your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say about this. I'm going to be doing a video that's going to be released probably in the next week or so on the 1979 version in much, much more detail. That video will be released on Krusty Old Vet, the Gear Issue 33. Speaking of that, I'll be linking a video in the description box and in the comment section for you guys. The finale of my Full Metal Jacket series is probably the one I'm going to be placing in there. And please go subscribe over there. The next video that's going to be coming out on this channel here is, I don't know if it's going to be the 2022 critique of All Quiet on the Western Front or if it's going to be 7. But if you made it this far, though, please tell me in the comment section which ones you would love to hear me do next. With that right there being said, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys later.